And good evening, everybody. Welcome to the latest edition of the African American Athlete live stream. I'm Rickey Hampton, along with my co host, Michael Roberson, coming to you on a Sunday evening. Hope everybody has had a great weekend. Hope everybody, and best of luck on your brackets. I know y'all busy filling them out right now, in addition to your Oscar brackets. We got the Oscars going on tonight, and the ladies Final Four. I'm sorry, the ladies bracket and the men's bracket for the NCAA tournament. Y'all, good luck with all of that. What's up, Mike? How you doing, brother?
I'm doing fine. I'm doing fine. It's funny you mentioned that because, of course, I've been doing a lot of coverage for the Stanford women, and it was kind of shaky this year, but they managed to get a number one seed, and they'll be playing the first two rounds out here at Stanford. So, and of course, whatever I cover is also attached to the African American athletes. So that's why I say
I mean, you wasn't shaky they wasn't gonna get in the tournament. You talking
no,
about
no, no, no. I was worried about them not
number
getting
one
number one
seed?
seed because
Gotcha.
they lost like three conference, and all their losses were in the conference. They lost in the conference tournament, and they lost like three regular season conference games, and they lost one game to South Carolina, defending champs. But
Yeah.
it was just like kind of one of those rocky years where they started off with that close overtime loss to South Carolina when they were 1-2, and then they were cruising for a while. Then they just had a few bumps in the
Hey, they
road.
didn't get a
So
chance
I don't
to.
know if they get punished or not and get put like a 3 seed or something and not be able to host the first two rounds.
They
So
they may get a chance for some payback. But we're gonna talk some hoops uh, at the bottom of the hour. Uh, but right now, I want to bring in a great friend of the show, and this brother has been on the forefront of athletes, activists, activism, and their rights. Uh, the CEO of Pre Post Game, Mr. Robert T. Green. Rob, man, it is so good to see you. So good to have you on tonight, brother.
I appreciate you guys having me on. I know it's been a minute, so it's good to see you, Mr. Robertson. As always, Mr. Hampton, it's a pleasure.
Hey, man, Rob, I want to play this little clip, and I want our viewers out there, everybody who watches this live stream, and all 44,000 of you subscribers out there, to take this in tonight, the work that Mr. Green has done over the past 2 years to bring the University of Iowa and a discrimination suit that athletes took on there to the forefront. I just want to play this little news clip that was on one of the Iowa stations the other day.
Racial discrimination settlement, and the state auditor not happy about it. A state board voted today 2-1 that $2 million of taxpayer money will help the University of Iowa Athletic Department settle a lawsuit brought by former football players. The players' alleged racial discrimination existed in Coach Kirk Ferentz's program. The settlement is for more than $4 million. State Auditor Rob Sand, the lone no vote on the three-member state board, said Athletic Director Gary Barta should be fired for the number of lawsuits ending in settlements under his watch.
Rob, that happened because of the work you put in. For
Yes,
them
indeed.
to win that lawsuit, to get the University of Iowa to settle. Take us back 2 years ago when all this went down, and you were speaking out about it. You were the only one out there talking
Right,
about this on a national stage.
right. So 2 years ago, one of the plaintiff's mothers decided to do a video basically speaking out about it. Now, again, in the history of sports, I want to preface this by saying Iowa is not the only or the first university to operate in these same type of areas with racial discrimination, bullying, basically making athletes feel less than based off of who they are, where they come from, using their position or lack thereof in underserved communities with scholarships and other type of situations and hopes and dreams of playing at the next level. So it's not a football thing. It's not a basketball thing. This is something that in my company in particular, as the players are pre-pros game, I'm well aware of. As I said on many occasions when I was started this, is that I experienced the same type of bullying and tactics by my own coaches. And I placed my own call to the NCAA over 20 plus years ago. And to this day, that call was not answered. So understanding that after having a conversation with many players, like I said, I didn't have conversations with 60, but pre-post game ended up representing essentially about 13 to 15 between public relations and media relations regarding getting their story out. The impact of this is because essentially, if you guys know, in this country, we're talking about state funds and also state revenue, that over 50% of the United States of America highest paid state employees are football coaches. So when I explain and I say sports is all business, reality is whether you want to call it child labor, children labor, unpaid labor. As I said before, we'll go to another topic later on about who started NIL, which is me. In that sense, is that reality is that when you have these coaches being the highest paid state employees, that the main reason why they get paid that much is to control the labor. And the labor that plays, they don't get paid, basically generates revenue for the state. And so essentially, what Iowa did not know and understand is that I was someone that actually was skilled and actually understand how to tell the story, how to evaluate the situation, and basically went about doing it that way. Most people realize that when it comes to these states and these schools, that they're backed by a lot of these networks, whether it's ESPN or networks at large, that they don't necessarily cover these things when some people that literally they have a relationship with tending to generating revenue together, they don't want to basically make them look a certain way. So the whole, back in the day where everybody will say, all right, we got caught with doing something. So we'll admit to a little bit, and then we'll say that we're going to get some sensitivity training going on. They didn't realize and understand that I was way beyond that and had all the information I needed to move it forward. Iowa's mistake was basically doing status quo. Essentially, long story short, after 2 to 3 years in court, we're thankful that the Board of Regents decided to settle out of court. But as again, the audience should know, this is the first and only university in the history of America, a public school, that settled under these terms and situations, racism and bullying. And most of them watching today probably didn't even know that, because the bottom line is black and white people, coaches, media alike, have not covered this in the sense of what they claim that their main issues or their care for is. That includes HBCUs and Power Fives.
That is so true, man. Now go ahead, Mike.
Okay, well, my question would be, have you received negative feedback, like in threats or anything from the administration in school or even some politicians?
If you guys know me for a long time, when it comes to threats in the sense of what you're going to do or what you say you're going to do when it comes to me, that's null and void. I'm a self-made man. I built my own from scratch. Like I said, not a white person, not a black person gave me or built anything. As I said before, I don't have any regrets, but I made some mistakes, and we might talk about that a little bit later. Pertaining to with me standing up for these actual athletes, part of the plan was to basically put myself out front, to make myself the target for all the people out there that want to attack my integrity, my credibility, where I came from, who do I think I am, essentially up against the longest tenured head coach in college football, the longest tenured strength coach at the time, highest paid for who they are. But at the same time, like I said before, they coach football, developing people, putting them in the best situations to succeed. I've been doing this for over 20 plus years, longer than Kirk Ferentz's career. So essentially, when it came down to it, whatever threat that a fan base wanted to bring towards me, it was never going to play itself out. But at the same time, that yes, those things happen, but it was by design, but I wanted it to happen by speaking out publicly and aggressively to the matter of what we were trying to accomplish.
Hey, and speaking of the aggressive, I mean, even back then, you were going after Ferentz, the head coach there, and Barter, the AD, and now even one of the auditors, state auditors, wants Barter out. Do you feel that Ferentz and Barter should be there?
It doesn't really matter about the settlement, the number about the settlement, the monetary value. What matters is over 60 plus African American players came out, and the arrogance that Kirk Ferentz continues to display to act like he did nothing wrong and what he says goes. And at the end of the day, when I said many times, I was not that good. So the arrogance he continued to display, the main reason why, again, certain people now wants Gary Barta out is because an unknown person like myself was able to get him to this point, like I said, for the first time in the history of this country, where these type of things have happened to African-American athletes, including myself, for decades. And when we spoke out, if you really want to put things in context, and that's why I said, again, I'm not in the business right now of pretending to be nice about what I've accomplished, not being actually recognized or understood by it, because we do have the Larry Nassar case, who, again, at the end of the day, Hush Blackwell was the same attorneys that Michigan State hired as Iowa. We do have the Ohio State wrestlers. We do have the Michigan Dr. Anderson, who did the thing. So we're talking about almost $1 billion in lawsuits after the fact, going back to Penn State with Sandusky and those same kids not being able to get support and help. So essentially, when I did what I did from that standpoint, it was very important to me to make sure no matter who was. So it didn't matter about being aggressive. It simply was saying that, you know what, this is unacceptable. 60-plus players saying this what it is, and these guys basically being told, like, you know what, well, it doesn't matter what they say, deal with it. And the bottom line is, now that this happened and Iowa being what it is, Gary Barta is taking heat, because the bottom line, this is his fourth discrimination case over his tenure there, ranging out to $11 million. So it goes. So this is what I said again about the powers that be, black and white included. Why is that not being covered? Like, so the bottom line is, how many more people, black or white, men or women, have to be basically bullied, abused, go through discrimination for whatever reason under these certain situations, maybe because they're the highest paid state employee in the state. But at the end of the day, what now is known and now is precedent is that at the end of the day, that a settlement, and again, judges don't know or understand NFTs and cryptocurrency. Judges don't know or understand sports, but they know or understand is precedent and basically how things get to a certain point. So now we've set that, and at the end of the day, hopefully going forward, other athletes, parents, universities now take a better account of who they actually are working with, take in consideration who these young men and women are, so they can put them in a situation to succeed, not to feel less than or bullied, or not basically feel like their time there is just something just to generate revenue for the actual university.
Let me follow up and then, Mike, let me just follow up right quick, Mike, with Rob. Rob, why has this not been a national story? I mean, this should be a lead story in the first block of all our sports networks, and even television networks, ABC News, NBC News, CBS News. This is, in my estimation, this is a landmark decision. It seems like it's being covered up.
It's not being covered up. This goes back to what I said before, why you haven't seen me much on social media anymore. There are people that get paid 5 figures that have not done a tenth of what I've done in this space to speak. And I've gone on shows for no compensation. I've educated people to the highest level as much as I possibly can. I've told people what's going to happen, whether it's the NCAA coming to an end, whether it's a situation when it comes to many African-American athletes not understanding the professional business of sports and not conducting themselves a certain way. These certain coaches, whether it's Deion Sanders, Ed Reed, all these things I've already prophesied it was going to happen because there's lack of professional development at every level. So when we having this complaint about why we're not getting hired under these scenarios, you turn around and watch this video, these guys doing that, or you say why this guy's not getting paid based on their behaviors off the court, off the field. I've already created the actual blueprint to speak to that. Not only created it, but actually, again, I basically developed and put the only African-American, only athlete, period, in the history of the world to come into the pro ranks as his own sports agency. And will be paid one of the highest paid players in his position in NFL history from his university. That's another feather under my cap. So the reason why you asked that question, why they haven't covered it, because the bottom line, when I go in a room, and I'm saying this matter of fact and confidently, the buck stops with me. And if I was the player's rep and understanding how these things actually go, there wouldn't be a scenario that we got going on right now with Alabama and coach don't understand what he did with this kid with the gun. It wouldn't be the situation when you don't understand as a parent with John Moran. It wouldn't be a situation where every know how to conduct himself in public speaking formats. It would be the same things I always talk about. So when Lamar Jackson or somebody says, well, Deshaun Watson got a guaranteed contract, this is business. Your name is not Deshaun Watson. You don't understand the terms and conditions. You don't basically go say, well, I'm a chef and you're a chef. I cook it in and out and you go in a 5-star Michelin restaurant. And so when I say that to our people, we get confused and get mad because at the end of the day, they don't know where the Michelin restaurant is. And that's not my problem. And what I try to do is try to elevate us, but us ignored me. And so at the end of the day, to answer your question, because there's so many things, like I said before, when people get platforms in this country, it's usually predicated based off of what type of system they're already in. So when you had all these athletes running around screaming about cryptocurrency, NFTs, I told everybody publicly, do not do it. It's a scam. Now you got Tom Brady and Shaq and Serena Williams and everybody being sued. So when I said sports is all business, no one wanted to talk about it. When you basically abuse someone or mistreat someone based off of the color of their skin while they sit there working their butt to get a certain place, and at the end of the day, when now they know how to speak up for themselves, you see the result. The other day, a Texas Tech coach stepped down. All the things precedent based off of pre-post game and Robert T. Green. Urban Meyer, I sent you a text earlier about and Urban Meyer. Is Urban Meyer working right now? No, he's not. Because when he did what he did to hire Chris Doyle, the strength coach that they released, I'm the first one, only one to say about, see, that's what I'm talking about. Everybody is so upset about what's going on in the pros about Urban Meyer, how he treated people. When he hired Chris Doyle, he knew exactly what he was doing because he was doing that in college. So how is it that y'all so upset about what they're doing when adults are getting paid, but look to another way when they're doing it to these uneducated, unrepresented athletes, male and female? And it's disgusting. And the matter of fact, is the end of the day is that the reason why they don't cover it because they got to look to themselves in the mirror, have accountability or lack thereof for not doing anything. So like I said, I might be the only black man in America say, I wish you would sue me. Because this counter suit, I'm going to triple it based off your actually not ability to do what you're supposed to do, what you were hired to do in the first place.
Mike.
All right. So Robert, like comparison, when the police officers assault or kill these individuals and then they get sued, but they don't really lose their own money. They lose the taxpayer money that is built in to compensate for whatever the police department has done wrong. Does that happen also at state schools?
And
is that going to be under the citizens that have to pay for whatever damages has been Iowa?
Originally, it was going to be $2 million from the athletic department and then $2 million from the actual state. But with the public outcry from the Board of Regents and a few other people through the state auditors, they now have an athletic department pay the full $4.17 $5 million settlement. And it's relevant simply because if you don't remember, as I said before, I started this conversation about that the highest paid state employee are usually college football coaches.
Right.
They just gave gave Kirk Ferentz another raise the other day about a few months ago, and essentially based off of what? You're going through this situation right now. Your team hasn't basically won a championship in forever. Your son only can score 7 points a game. He giving him $900,000. He was in the suit. Gary Barter, who basically is on the was on the CFB committee, had his own issues. And again, this is beyond me. You have 4 settlements over your tenure at Iowa, yet you got time to basically be overseeing the college football committee. Like at the end of the day, their priorities have never been in order. And essentially what ended up happening was that when you got Kirk Ferentz and Brian Ferentz and Chris Doyle basically doing what they need to do, whatever they want to do, and Gary Barter not essentially holding them accountable, essentially in this case right now that when that money is paid out of the athletic department, and as I said before, when we started this, settlement or not, I still don't believe Kirk Ferentz should be around these athletes. Again, the settlements happened and he went out and said that it shouldn't happen, he wasn't aware, which is another lie. And bottom line, they'll lie because at the end of the day, no one is holding them accountable for their lies. So at the end of the day, by telling a lie publicly after the fact, let us continue business as usual. But like I said, again, what we have here is for the 60-plus players overall that came out, the 12 that remained on the case, vindication, understanding that their voices were going to be heard, which I said from day one, understanding that they matter, understanding the settlement is not going to make them rich and change their lives in the sense where they're going to be able to do whatever they want to do. But the bottom line is at the end of the day, what happened to them should never happen in the first place, and it should not happen anywhere else going forward. So bottom line, that's the biggest outcome and the biggest thing we wanted to make sure. And just from my personal standpoint, I just showed everyone I don't need ESPN. I don't need Johnny Cochran. I don't need Ben Crump. I don't need anybody to do what's right by people that do right by us and themselves. And so at the end of the day, that should let anybody know if you work hard and you do the right thing, that the right things could work out for you.
I mean, that is so true. I mean, Rob, this is really, I mean, I tip my hat to you, bro. This is a remarkable accomplishment on your part with clearly all the media against you, not giving you the forum to get the word out like it should be done in a case of this magnitude. Bro,
let me give a shout out real quick to boys in particular. I want to shout out Solomon Simmons Law, Demario Solomon Simmons, African-American man. He's also the main attorney for the Tulsa massacre. So he is the lead attorney for that in that scenario of getting those victims their rights looked at and taken care of for what happened many years ago. Another lawyer, Christian Denny, a Caucasian brother that's out in Texas, that literally, like I said, when we decided to go with them, was based off of us understanding what we needed to have happen from a legal standpoint, understanding the credibility they have, but also the skills that they had to match along with what we were doing from a PR and a media relations standpoint. So when I said before, when I took the PR on and media relations as pre-post game, I did that knowing that the powers that be, the mainstream media, wasn't going to. And again, even when I was doing it at that time, most lawyers, most main media were not trying to sue or speak up on anything that happened to those actual people. So at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, I really have one more thing I got to do in this sports space. But I will say to you guys, since you haven't talked to me lately, you might have known that my client was also Devin Willock, young man from Georgia who passed away from a car accident. I've basically put my life on the line for helping people for the last 25 years before sports and then back into this. And it's taken a lot out of it. And a lot of the solutions that I basically provide for athletes are not just athlete solutions, they're business-based solutions. They're solutions from knowledge and platforms and development and growth that most of us do not want to acknowledge and understand, but want to talk about when you see Ja Morant doing what he's doing. When you see Kyrie, when you see that guy, you see Lamar Jackson right now. Everybody's screaming about an agent. Has nothing to do with an agent. Let me just say this real quick on your platform. If you ever, as an employee, go to apply for a job somewhere, at any given time during that time of your employment, someone sees you either harassing, going back at, being crazy, disrespecting the person that's actually paying the tickets for your actual program in business, that's a problem. If someone actually sees you on IG Live going 100 miles an hour behind a car, just understand no one is giving you $200 million in guarantees for any reason, anywhere. When you miss 9 games out of the last 2 years, do not talk to them about Deshaun Watson. This is business. And the problem is, at the end of the day, no matter how much money these people make, no matter how many people cover them, they do not understand this is corporate America, this is business, this is professional development. And as an owner, as a person, as a black owner of my own company, I'm not giving Lamar Jackson $200 million guaranteed. So the reality is, at the end of the day, if all you do is watch social media and your peers and say what you should do, not really understanding what this really means and how this really works, this is why I'm saying officially on African American Athlete Show, after I finish this last scenario with my current client, I'm no longer going to be in the sports business.
But
I don't
Rob,
have my patience anymore for this.
I hate hearing that. And we got to have you back because we got another guest coming at the bottom of the hour, and we hadn't talked to you. And there's some issues I'd like to get in, discuss with you. So right now, I want to ask you to come back and visit with us. But before you go, speak a little more to the Lamar Jackson situation. Do you think he needs an agent?
No.
But if he was your client, what would you tell Lamar Jackson? And just for our viewers out there, Lamar Jackson, quarterback, Baltimore Ravens, former MVP, just got an exclusive franchise tag put on him. He's representing himself. He apparently wants to make more money than Deshaun Watson and have a guaranteed contract. Quickly, Rob, before you go, and do come back because we got some more stuff to talk about. Address that for me.
So first of all, if you haven't noticed, Lamar Jackson League MVP doesn't have any major marketing commercials or anything like that, endorsements. There's a reason for that. It's how you conduct yourself on social media. So once again, you represent the organization or franchise. So despite what people want to say, he's made some serious mishaps pertaining to how he responds to certain fans or people that gets underneath his skin in certain areas. When you talk about getting that amount of money at the end of the day, and I'll use Daniel Jones as a perfect example. With Daniel Jones' experience in New York over these last 3 years and his play when he had different coaches, he said not one word. He basically went about doing his job to the best of his ability. And at the end of the day, he's sitting right now with a 4-year, $160 million contract. It shouldn't be that hard to understand when you are the leader of your franchise, how they wanted to conduct yourself. I spoke on this show a few years back, God rest his soul, with Dwayne Haskins. I made the same scenario. I said the same statement. Your name is Dwayne Haskins, not Simba. At the end of the day, this is a level of professional. You represent a state, a country, and a sense of what you're doing. Only 32 teams in that scenario. So with Lamar Jackson, everything he's done has not exemplified what an actual quarterback at the National Football level that they want you to do. So again, it's not a black and white thing. Baker Mayfield did the same exact thing. The number 1 overall pick. So the reality is, if I'm representing Lamar Jackson right now, first thing I'm saying is that beforehand, he should have never played this year. So at the end of the day, he has no leverage whatsoever. 2, as I mentioned earlier, he missed all these games. So he should be negotiating based off of what he's been able to produce. If it was me negotiating for him, what he would end up doing already, he would have took about $170 million guaranteed with a shorter term year, 1 year less, and end of the day, play that out. And then when he get close to that 3rd year, then when he get to year 2 playing well, he can renegotiate, then get that $230 million guaranteed by staying healthy. The reality is, by doing this now, he's pushed himself in a situation where he might get franchise tag. He's a running quarterback. He's getting older, not going to get faster as you get older. So the longer this plays out in a sense of what you're going to do, and you establish all these things in Baltimore, he really has no leverage because you have to rebuild, restart somewhere else. And he really don't have the actual, as you see by the NFL, they don't have a lot of a taste or appeal for Lamar right now because Lamar is Lamar. He's not operating like they figure most quarterbacks will operate. So if I'm him right now, I would basically say, no, you don't need an agent. You got to understand the fair market value and where you at. Get your money, get your guarantees, clean up some of the things off the field. Once you start, because an NFL owner cares about 2 things. 1, your ability to stay healthy, how you represent your franchise. And if you're not being on TV every day, because they can't trust you to be on there and say the right thing, because that's how they make their money too. Ticket sales, advertising, all the different scenarios when they put you out in front. That brings owners money. So Lamar we talking about him. Where is he at? We don't see him. That's part of the negotiation, but you don't understand. And until someone explains to him, it's not about what your peers say of the 1,300. It's not about what the local community, the people that, like I said again, want to kick it on the corner. It's about understanding you are a corporate face, and you need to operate as such if you want to hold that spot as one of the 32 players in the NFL. And more importantly, so you want the most money, you need to basically do a whole lot more, represent yourself, the community and organization at that level if you want to do that, including the National Football League.
Brother, that makes sense. I mean, that's bringing it. Ron,
let me get one last one in, Ricky.
Okay, and Terrence, we see you, brother. We about to bring you in.
I got you.
Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me, Terrence. Okay, we're about to bring you in. Oh, go ahead right quick.
All right, yeah. Well, my question is, since you said this is going to be it for you, what stands out as when you were a player and then post game while you were representing these athletes? What stands out in both realms?
Is that I try to make this something where understanding where we came from, when I didn't have the support, the knowledge of decisions that I made, I try to make it where, like, I even created my own digital business academy, only one in the world, an accelerator. What I found is that many people didn't want to really have the information learn. They wanted somebody to do it for them. And the sad part about this in 2023 with technology and ability to grow and build your own, that when I do all these things, put all this money into people that don't want to invest in themselves, into us, as I said before, I don't regret anything, but that was a mistake. I could have spent more time putting into me from that standpoint, because the same people that you put into, they end up there. It's one of the reasons why 80% go broke after their retirement, because they don't even know who they are when they no longer finish playing. And that's because everybody around them are not telling the truth or giving them the tools as necessary take that same skill set that got them to be a pro, transition to something else. And what I know about myself and my value at this point, you are what you allow people to do to you. So if I allow myself to be treated and not respected, whether it's monetarily or professionally, and I continue to push forward for other people, then I'm doing it to myself. And my growth and my transition says I can no longer do that. So I thank you guys.
Hey, Robert T. Green, a pre-post game. Rob, book your calendar for next Sunday. I'll be in touch with you, man, because we got to finish this up. And again, congratulations, man, on the University of Iowa discrimination lawsuit. Brother, you put in the good work to make that happen. Thank you, Rob.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you guys. God bless.
That's Robert T. Green, a pre-post game. We appreciate him. And now let's bring this good Noop on. This is the Noop hour.
What's going on, good brothers? What's going on?
Hey, man. Terrence, I had to get you on, man, so I can get my bracket together, brother. I need some knowledge.
Oh man, this is one of those years where you could just flip a coin on just about every game, but you really don't have a clear-cut dominant favorite this year. In years past, you could say, "Oh, this Kentucky team, they're going to be there," or this Duke team, or something like that. Not this year. This is one of those weird years where I think a double-digit seed may very well win this thing.
But what about on the women's side?
Well, I haven't really. Well, listen, they're all playing to see who's going to play South Carolina, if we're going to be honest. So, the two really best teams, or two or three best teams. I mean, South Carolina is just head and shoulders above everybody else. Stanford has a fighting chance. But unless South Carolina just really has injuries or a terrible day, they really should win it all. Don Staley's done an amazing job with that.
Absolutely.
And first of all, Mike, we got to give Terrence's proper introduction. Former Oklahoma Sooner, played with the Sooners from 1988 to 91, right?
Yes.
Yeah. On some of those outstanding teams in Oklahoma. One of our college basketball experts here on the African American athlete. We appreciate you stepping in and being with us this evening to talk a little college basketball. And I got a lot of questions for you. And I'm going to kind of jump all over because I was watching Purdue and Penn State today, the Big Ten championship game. And for 30 minutes, Purdue looked like world beaters. And the final 5 minutes, they look like a sixth grade team, man.
That's Purdue.
That's an insult to a sixth grade team.
But that's Purdue. That's been Purdue. I mean, they had that. They kicked everyone's tail. They got to the number one ranking, and then all of a sudden, I don't know what happened. They just fell apart. They have one player that's dominant, the big fella in the middle, and if the guards around him aren't hitting shots, they're in trouble. He gets in any kind of foul trouble, they're in trouble. He scored what, 32 today or something like that. They only had 67 points. So
he was dominant.
And he's a dominant player. But like I said, if those young the guards and the perimeter players around him, because they're just gonna go four perimeter, him on the block, and he's gonna get good position. But if he stays out of foul trouble, they'll make a good run. But it really depends on those guards. If they're not hitting any outside shots, they're in trouble. They're
they are a susceptible number.
Very much so. I mean, you saw that in the last 5 games. Yeah. I didn't even see that. They were up 18 or something like that. 16-2 run in the last 5 minutes.
Mike, Penn State had the ball. They were up 17 actually. Purdue had the ball. They were up 17 with about 5 minutes to go. Just actually 4-something. Penn State had the ball with a shot to win the game at the end. That's how much they folded. Hey, before I go to you, Mike. Hey, Champ, is Edey an NBA player?
That's a tough
in
question.
Today's NBA.
Yeah, I don't know. His lack of mobility Camperson, but he can score the basketball on the block. But today's NBA is analytics say the 3-point shot is the weapon, and you're looking at teams casting 40 and 53s a game. I really don't know. And then on defense, they're switching everything. I don't know where he fits in today's NBA. I'll be honest with you.
And I saw that last night out here in San Francisco. The Bucks had a lead in the fourth, and Steph just went crazy.
Well,
then once they got to overtime, it was over. So.
Steph is what do we say out here? Steph is gonna Steph, right?
Yeah. All right. Well, my question would be this: we get into the conference situation, because now they're trying to say the best conference now in NCAA is the Big 12, and then of course the prognosticators today said most of them thought that Alabama's going to win the national championship, which sounds weird because we know we're used to them for football, right? But so, what is your ideal of it? What do you think is the trending conference, and then what team do you think could possibly take it all?
Like I said at the beginning of the show, I don't see a clear-cut favorite, and that's when I'm looking at these brackets, I'm seeing some, that could be an upset, or that could be. I'm looking at Kansas bracket. Kansas, if they get by the first round, the second round, you got a possibility of Arkansas, and Arkansas is one of those scary teams that if they show up and play the way that they can play, they can beat Kansas. Or if Kansas, plays like they're capable of, that's a 20-point win for Kansas. You just never know this year. Alabama's one of those. Look at Alabama. Alabama lost to Oklahoma by over 20 points.
Right.
Oklahoma's not even in the tournament. And then Alabama turns it around. You have a good run in their conference tournament, and they get this number 1 seed. But is the problem that they have on the campus with the shooting and the players involved with that, is that going to affect them coming into this tournament and stuff like that? You have to, that affects the team in certain ways. If they start, once the other media is getting a hold of, trying to talk to what's the young fella Miller about his involvement in it, it could be a distraction, and young guys aren't ready for those kind of distractions.
Hey, do you think Kansas missed having Bill Self? And of course, we wish Coach Self all the best as he recovers from some health issues. The reports are he'll be back next week.
Yeah, the reports were
they did not play well while he was gone.
No. Well, they got to the conference championship against Texas, but Texas just really put it on them. And you could tell they looked out of sorts a bit. Coach Self is you can't not miss him on the sideline, So that plays a role. And I'm looking down the line, I'm looking at Houston. Houston gets whooped by Memphis. And they're without their best player, Sasser. Sasser doesn't, if he's not 100%, Houston's not going to go very far. And then you have Memphis. Memphis is one of those scary teams because they can defend, they can run up and down the floor, they're athletic. You just never know with that team.
Yeah, that's one of my dark horses, Mike. In 10, they are a team that could win it all or lose first round.
Right, exactly. That's my point about this year's tournament. I'm looking at this bracket like, this might be the year that all of my teams are out in the first 64. The first weekend.
But you want to know something that's pleasant, of course, for me being from that area, but it's cool to see, is what Shaka Smart is doing in Milwaukee. Marquette's a 2 seed this year, and they look pretty good. I mean, I think that the downgrade they kind of put on them is their defense, but their offense is supposed to be impeccable. But Shaka Smart, of course, did this before. Years ago at his tournament run, and now he's doing it at Marquette, and it's like really nice to see. And this might be the first Final Four team since the Dwayne Wade years.
Well, you saw what Shaka Smart did with you,
right?
And back then they whooped the number 1 Kansas, number 1 seed, number 1 ranked Kansas team. I mean, just absolutely destroyed them in the tournament. So he's a good coach, and if he gets these guys motivated to play his style of play, there's going to be some problems. And you know, Marquette, Miami has two of the best guards in the tournament. They're going to be a problem. Those two guards.
Right.
This is one of those. This is one of those tournaments where I just don't know.
Yeah.
But here's the crazy thing about that Big East. And Marquette won the Big East regular season title and the conference title, which is impressive, first time ever. But they've been in other conferences like the Great Midwest when I used to cover them and all that. But in that conference, two big known people will be gone as coaches. Jim Boeheim, they don't know if he's considered retired or fired. And then, of course, Pat Ewing at Georgetown, was let go. So
they
what
underachieved.
About that, how the landscape is going to be changed like that?
I thought Patrick. I thought Georgetown stuck with him a little longer than they should. And I get what they were trying to do. They were trying to bring back, the old 80s right. But what they say, great players don't always make great coaches.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't think he played a style of basketball that was conducive to some of the athletes that he had on their team. So
what about Boeheim?
And then Boeheim, I think the years, 47 years of playing zone defense, I think after a while, some of these coaches are going to figure out how to beat that zone defense.
Yeah.
And, he wasn't getting the coaches or some of the players that he normally gets, some of the because he's had some really good players throughout the years. So it's unfortunate that to see, Coach Boeheim go because he's been around a long time and he's had a great amount of success at the University of Syracuse. And you just hope that they continue to be successful after he's gone.
Yeah, let's go. We got some comments here. Our good buddy Ralph Riddle. Edie is the most protected player in the NCAA, averaging less than 2 fouls a game. He gets away with a lot. The Idiots have to play lights out to win it all. If Shaq had that protection, he would have stayed at LSU all 4 years. And he goes on to say this could be one of the most fun tournaments given no clear-cut favorite. Parity in the NCAA. My buddy and colleague Jared Wiley. That's too bad with you, and just makes you wonder if the same would have happened had he coached NBA team.
Oh, he would have been fired after 2 years after NBA.
Yeah, they wouldn't have hung up.
Yeah, maybe by the All-Star break, some of these players.
I think the fact that he's a Hoya great and a legend,
right?
That they gave him a long rope.
Yeah. And at least they definitely stayed with him too long. But I was glad to see them try to give him, Pat, you are Hoya basketball. So at least they tried to stick with him. He just didn't. And Patrick would be the first to tell you, too. I'm sure. He's like, bro, you lose 29 straight games.
Yeah.
What you got to do to get fired around?
Exactly.
What you got to do to get fired around? And I watched his team because I cheered for that brother, man. His teams played hard, but they were just not good enough.
No, they didn't. They had good athletes, not good basketball players.
Yeah,
they had some guys that some big fellas that could play way above the rim, but you start looking at him like this. Could this guy make a layup if no one was in the gym? This guy's having a hard time putting the ball in the basket.
And Terrence, you were playing during the time when they had those strong. Did you guys ever match up with them?
No, we never played Georgetown. No, we never.
But what did you? I know you watched them. What did you see?
Well, Georgetown back then had they were great defensively.
Yeah.
That they would intimidate you with their hounding defense, and that was the thing on him. But they didn't have what we thought. They didn't have athletes that could get up and down the court like we did. We thought if we ever matched up with them, our style of play was going to be a problem with them because we ran. We put up 100, 120 a game, and if you couldn't run like us, you were in trouble.
Yeah.
But they had size. They played great defense. They had big fellas that could. after Patrick Ewing, they had Alonzo Mourning and Dikembe Mutombo. Those dudes protect the basket. You weren't getting a whole lot of layups on these.
Yeah.
All right, so then let's go back to that era when you your days, late '80s, early '90s. So, like you said, the guys would run up and down, and you pretty much knew major players in every conference. Now it's like it's hard to really identify who's the number one player in the country. I mean, think about during your time, we knew Sean Elliott, B.J. Armstrong, all these guys. Of course, before you.
A lot of that,
the guy at your Tisdale. So, is it just like now it's more because probably the one and done and all that it's harder to really gauge who's the best players now?
It's one and done. It's also you have a lot of great players that go straight to G League or the G League Unite thing. You also have the transfer portal, which guys are skipping a program, so quickly that you really can't get an idea of who's who on the team. You never know who's going to be on a roster from one year to the next. So those things are part of the issue. And then like I said, guys are leaving so early. Just kind of is what it is with today's basketball, especially college basketball.
How do you like the transfer portal, Terry?
I hate it. I absolutely hate it. I hate it. If I like it in the sense that if you don't lose eligibility. So when I played, you lost a year eligibility if you transferred. You had to sit out a year. So I like it that you don't use that year of eligibility, but you can go in and out of that thing. I mean, you don't like where you're at, go back into the transfer portal. Can't play where you just went to, go back into the transfer portal. And I think that needs to stop.
And you know what's happening, guys? There are guys who are jumping in the portal who aren't getting picked up.
Yeah.
And hey, now I don't have anywhere to go.
Well, and that's the thing, because you're going against all the other players in the transfer portal, and you're going against high school recruits.
Right.
And so it's that kind of thing. So sometimes you really have to know yourself to say, you know what, maybe I should stick it out where I'm at, work a little harder, and bust through.
Well, wouldn't the one circumstance be, let's say, if say you coming out of Reardon, that's where you went, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you're coming out of Reardon and you're all set to go to UCLA or Oklahoma where you went, and then all of a sudden the coach leaves.
Well, typically in that situation, they let you out of the commitment if the coach leaves, because that's who recruited you. So you, in that sense, you don't really have to go back into the transfer portal. But even back when I played, if the coach left, a lot of times it'll let a guy off of his commitment to that university because the coach that recruited him is gone.
What if he leaves after your freshman year, though?
You might want to go with him.
All right.
He goes, we go.
Yeah, because I remember, and Ricky probably does too, when Allen Houston was set to go to Louisville, then all of a sudden Wade got the job. Our frat brother, of course.
Exactly.
Both our frat brothers.
Right.
But he got the job at Tennessee. And at first they were saying, like, wait a minute, you made a commitment. But then eventually they said, well, we got to let him go play this
Gotta let him go. Exactly.
But they were putting up a stink at first. I'm like,
they tried.
He's not going to play at Louisville.
Denny Crum was the coach then. He's going to try. Right. Denny Crum had great players. He's going to make sure he keeps these great players.
Hey, I don't know if you had a chance to watch the young kid, Imani Bates. Ralph has a question about what's Imani Bates going to do. He started out, he was a phenomenal high school player, covers Sports Illustrated, 15 years old, left high school, father started a prep academy, Ypsilanti Prep, not far from here in Ypsilanti, Michigan. Went down to Memphis last year. Didn't get much done down there, transferred back to, here's an example. He transferred out to Eastern Michigan in Ypsilanti, played well, was all conference. Team didn't have a lot of success, but he played pretty well. Have you watched enough of his game?
I've never seen him play. I've heard of the story.
Okay.
6'9", pretty much 6'9" guard. But he's eligible for the draft. So I mean,
Yeah.
if he plays well in the pre-draft camps and things of that nature, you know, he'll get a shot. Or nowadays, a guy like him could go play 1 year in the G League, dominate, and then all of a sudden he's back up in the NBA and doing well. So it really you really have to wonder. Hopefully he's got the right people in his corner, right people giving him good advice. But I haven't seen him play this year.
That's the thing that concerns me about some of these kids, man. I understand wanting to get to the NBA as quick as possible. I mean, it's the NBA. It's the epitome of competition. It's the money and everything that goes with it. But man, I wish some of these kids just, let's take this year or two. I certainly think that would have helped Imani if he just. Imani should really be a senior in high school right now.
Well, here's the deal. Here's the problem. Yeah, here's the problem though. College basketball used to get you prepared to play in the NBA. College basketball doesn't do that anymore. So you don't see a lot of players coming from college, being dominant, by the way, in the NBA. You do see a few, but not a lot. Back in the 90s and the 80s, guys came out of college and that next year as rookies, they were dominating. You don't see that a lot, I think the one dominant rookie this year coming from college is, to me, Banchero.
Yeah, he's getting his.
Right. When I say dominate, he's a problem. I don't know if any of the other rookies are dominating. They're playing a good role for the teams that they're on, but they're not dominating. Michael Jordan came into the NBA and averaged 28 as a rookie. Yeah. You're not seeing that. You know what I mean? Allen Iverson came in and he was dominant as a rookie.
Yeah. And unless you and those you mentioned two extraordinary talents, because they just don't come along every time. Some of these kids, they draft them knowing he ain't ready to play yet.
Project, right.
We got a kid here in Detroit, Jalen Duran, the big 6'11" kid. I mean, he freak athlete, but he ain't ready to play.
Well, typically, most bigs are
winning
3-4 years away, project-wise.
But then I go back in the day a little bit when Tayshaun Prince came out of Kentucky. After 4 years, he ends up playing a major role on the championship team, and he played like a veteran. And we would talk to him. He's like, man, I've been playing in big games at Kentucky every week. The maturity.
Even Tim Duncan. Look at Tim Duncan. Played 4 years, stepped right in San Antonio and transitioned well. Made it easier for David Robinson.
Yeah, but I was gonna say that maturity, Terrence. Instead of being 18, 19,
exactly
20, 21, 22.
Yeah.
That's a big jump at that age.
Huge.
And he might have been the reason why Detroit didn't draft. Think about that.
Yeah,
I think that might have been one of the factors why they said, "Well, we don't need Melo."
Yeah, that's the downside of that because we drafted. That's the bad part of that story. We drafted. I don't even remember the guy's name now.
Darko.
Yeah, that's the bad part of this. He was too good when he came in.
Yeah, he didn't. That was a bad pick. Did he even pan out in the NBA? Not at all, did he?
Yeah, but he can walk around with a ring though.
He got a ring,
and Melo's still waiting for his. So I know that hurts him.
Jared Wiley, Bates will get drafted, then be sent to the G League for a year. He needs to add weight and also share the ball a bit more. At East of Michigan, which is 8 miles from my house, he had some good games, but he seemed to hog the ball, and his teammates stood around. There was very little movement when he had the ball. Hey, Jared, that's just like when you had the ball when we played at the farm, man. Jared, no, trust me. This is an accurate breakdown from my old Flint Journal colleague, Jared Wiley. He
you know what?
knows about hogging the ball. I'm just teasing you, Jared.
Well, you know what, Ricky, he mentioned that, but then also think about this. He's talking about how, how Penny has them in the tournament, right? Memphis. And but think about it. It could have possibly been him and Wiseman playing down there. Because Wiseman was like out of there real quick on some crazy stuff and had to end his season prematurely. So think about that team, and he's in the tournament now. But think about he had those two guys. If Imani would have, panned out, I don't know what happened. I don't know why you don't want to play for a guy with that of that ilk. But who knows?
But that money, that opportunity to make that money is hard to.
It's hard to pass up.
Yeah, Ralph Rudd again. That's why Calipari is my favorite coach. I think he sees his job as prepping his guys for the NBA first. Yeah, I'm with you on that, Ralph.
Yeah, I can't complain. Yeah, I mean, you think about Devin Booker. Devin Booker didn't even start at Kentucky, and look what he's doing in the NBA. Look at Jamal Murray. They've had some really good players come through Kentucky. I don't know if you'll see that kind of one and done like Kentucky's had in the past anymore. There, some of these kids that Kentucky's getting now, they need 2 or 3 years of college basketball to get ready for the NBA.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that is the impact of the G League now. Well, guys, hey, let me go here first to the G League.
And that's the thing. It prepares you more for the NBA game than college does. It's a big difference between the college game and the NBA game, and the G League prepares you more.
Yeah.
That's why you have a lot of guys look at Jonathan Kuminga. He didn't play in college. He played in G League Ignite.
Yeah.
Well, Brandon Jennings is going to be the pioneer for this, going elsewhere during that one and done. Brandon Jennings when he went to the Bucks. Yeah.
And played 10, 12 years in the
same with LaMelo Ball.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So hey, Chance, we just got a couple of minutes, man. We certainly appreciate your expertise, and hopefully you can check back in with us as the tournament progresses. But I just want to switch you over to a little NBA ball right quick for maybe 5 minutes or so before we get out of here. Your thoughts on the NBA season as we head towards the playoffs. What stands out with you, and how do you see the playoffs?
The West is tough. I mean, you've got 6, 7 teams within a game or two of each other to even make it into the to the playoffs. So the West is tough. The East, you've got your Boston, Philly, Milwaukee. Those are the dominant teams. I won't discount the Heat, Miami Heat, but Boston, Philly, and Milwaukee are the top teams in the East to me. But the West, oh my gosh, there is no true dominant. That's the team that's going to be in the NBA Finals coming out of the West. You could flip a coin on 8 different teams, and they could all be in the NBA Finals.
Yeah.
John Morant and can get his stuff together. Memphis is going to be a problem. Dallas with Kyrie and Luka. I mean, those two could put up 40 each in the game easily. Then you've got the walking triple-double Jokic in Denver, who they're playing some great basketball. And then with Phoenix getting Kevin Durant. If Kevin Durant, if his ankle is not bothering, they're going to be an absolute problem for everybody.
Yeah, and I think health is going to decide. It always decides who goes where, but even more so this year, because man, lo and behold, the Lakers are really playing a lot better now.
And that's without
LeBron. And then you get LeBron back, and he's hungry, and he'll be fresh. They will be a dangerous team, man. I do not bet against LeBron James.
And that was a great trade that they made to get D'Angelo Russell, who's a true point guard, and he's capable of scoring.
And
that was a great trade. And then you get AD healthy. If AD is healthy, AD can be unguardable.
And Vanderbilt
it's just he's a fall away from being out for the
Yeah.
rest of the year. That's the only
Yeah.
problem with him.
And Vanderbilt has given them some good men. Hey, do you think Westbrook is being maligned a bit, or you think his game has become obsolete, or
I think his game has been exposed.
okay?
When he was in Oklahoma City and he won the MVP, averaged a triple double through the year. I think what you saw is he's so ball dominant that his stats were because of his ball dominance. So now put him on a Laker team or put him on another team where he's not ball dominant, that really showed the problems or the deficiencies in his game. When you're ball dominant, you got the ball in your hand for 23 out of a 24-second shot clock, you know,
You're gonna get those
but
stats.
now come off the ball and how do you perform? And it just really shows that once he's off the ball, he's not the player that we thought he was. And then, on top of that, I don't know where his shot went. I mean, because he never had been a great shooter, but not as terrible a shooter that he's become. Where, you watch the game against the Warriors and Draymond is standing in the key, not guarding him, and he's not even looking at the basket at all. I was like, this I've never seen that in an NBA game. An NBA player not looking at the basketball of his caliber.
Right.
Right. Hey, bro, even I'm gonna step in and shoot that thing, man.
Well, Terrence, the best defense of all time is self-check.
Yeah.
Self-check.
He was certainly self-checked in that game.
Exactly, and that's what happens if you get in somebody's head like that. No matter how good they used to be, if they lost their confidence, that's it.
And a lot of it is that 3-point line.
Yeah.
If you watch the game against the Warriors and the Lakers, that one where the way Draymond was guarding Westbrook, he stayed at the 3-point line.
Right.
At no point when Draymond is in the key guarding him did he close that gap to kind of put Draymond on his heels.
Right.
So it's like that 3-point line has become a force field in the NBA, which I don't understand, and in college.
Hey, Terrence, and isn't it a way to try to optimize what he does do well? Is there any way that
what he does do well to me is high pick and rolls, very good off the high pick and roll. If you've got a big man who's, he was great with Steven Adams in that high pick and roll, right? I don't think he has that type of player. I mean, he even when he was with the Lakers, the high pick and roll with him and AD, that was bread and butter. But other than that, he's not a stand and shoot, spot up shoot guy. He's also good in transition. Get the ball, get it to him, and he's going. He's one of the fastest players from one end of the court to the other with the basketball. So in that transition game, he's very dynamic. But outside of that, once he gets into the half court, he's in trouble.
Wow.
All right. Well, Terrence, let's go to your hometown team. And of course, now that I live out here, my hometown team looks great at home, like they did last night against the Bucks without Giannis, I may add. But they look good last night, but they're dreadful on the road.
They look like
on
the road, man.
Yeah. Well, with that going on, what can they really, really do?
Unfortunately, it's a personnel issue. When you've got a team that's smaller than some high school teams, you're in trouble. Small ball worked. When Steve Kerr, when he had the first introduction of his small ball lineup, it worked, and it works in spurts, but it doesn't work throughout a 48-minute game. And now they're playing small ball throughout a 48-minute game. When your tallest player is 6'8", 6'9", and only jumps 3.5 inches off the floor. So they're in trouble. They lack size, and 6'3s. You're not 6'3" guards. You're gonna have a hard time guarding against 6'8s and 6'9s. You're gonna get pounded on the boards, and then to top that off, they turn the ball over so much. So they rebound horribly because they're small. They turn the ball over too much, and then they rely too heavily on the three. So if they're not hitting that, they're in trouble. If they're not out rebounded, see, they out rebounded Milwaukee yesterday, and that's why they won that game. I mean, they killed Milwaukee on the boards, and that's the only reason they won that game, because they shot way too many threes. They had way too many turnovers. You know, it's just the fact that they got a lot of second chance points on the rebounds, but that doesn't help them in a 7-game series against another
Right.
team. You know, it hurts them in a 7-game series. They'll get pounded. They'll just get pounded.
Hey, Terrence, the impact of the 3-pointer during your career at Oklahoma, late 80s, early 90s, and how it's evolved to the day, the way the game is played, and your thoughts on that.
Well, when I played, the game was inside out. You know, dominate the paint to open up the three. Whereas today's game is, you know, everyone's standing around on the perimeter to open it up for a three. You know, you see guys, you know, taking the ball to the basket to draw the defense in, only to kick it out for a three. We would draw it in, you know, to the big fella and let the big fella do his work. And then once everyone starts dumping down and trying to double down on him, then kick it out for the three. So it's a whole 80 in philosophy where, you know, analytics say the 3-point is the weapon and use it as a weapon. But you look at the shooting percentages of most of these 3-point shooters. If you're not shooting in the high 30s, to me, you shouldn't be shooting. You shouldn't be shooting. and that was our thing. You know, I mean, I shot 44 as a freshman, 40 as a sophomore, and 47 as a junior. So, you know, I used my three. I mean, I was a pretty decent 3-point shooter, but you know, you got guys shooting, you know, 30% from the 3-point line, man. You might want to take a 2 steps in and shoot a 2-pointer.
A couple more questions for you before we get out of here from Ralph. He asks, how long will the Blue Bloods in Kentucky put up with Cal not winning the championship?
As long as they continue to be national threats, and anytime, you know, you've got a Calipari team and he's getting the blue chip All-Americans that he's getting, they're always a threat, you know. They're always a year or two away. If he can keep guys and not lose too many in the transfer portal, you know, if your freshmen become sophomores and they're competitive as freshmen, as sophomores, they're going to be dominant. As juniors, they're going to be top 2 or 3 in the nation. It's just a matter of Cal being able to keep them, you know, as freshmen, sophomores, and then maybe into some of them into their junior year, you know. But Cal's honest with his players. He'll tell them right away, you're an NBA talent and you need to go. You know, he won't hold on to them like that.
Yeah. Final thing, Ja, your thoughts on Ja and the Grizzlies. You spoke a little bit about it earlier.
I hope that someone is in his ear. I hope his father is in his ear, and I hope he's getting the right people around him, because let's just be honest. I mean, you're too good of a talent. John Moran is too good of a talent to be doing the things that we saw on social media. Too good of a talent. This dude is one of the unguardables in the league. You know, he's absolutely unguardable. You just hope he's having a bad game, because no one's going to stay in between him and the basket. You know, if you know, this doesn't affect them, you know, the problem with, you know, these kind of issues, it affects young players, and when it affects young players, it affects the team. If it doesn't affect them and he can come back and play the way that he was playing before, I think the Grizz can make a problem. I think what the Grizz miss is Steven Adams. They really miss the big fella, you know. And then losing the other guy off the bench, that really hurts them. So
the guy that tore his Achilles.
Yeah. That hurts them, because he gave them a spark off the bench.
11 points a game and like 7-8 rebounds.
That hurts them. And then they without Steven Adams, they become smaller. Now Jaren Jackson Jr. is your only, you know, big and he's, can he handle the wear and tear of a big in a 48-minute game?
Yeah.
All right. Well, my last question, Terrence, would be when you came out of Reardon in '86, they didn't have 3-pointers in high school then, did they?
No.
All right. So then, when was your first one at Oklahoma? What was that? What was the moment you shot that first three and you realized that, hey, that's something I could do on a regular basis?
Well, I knew as soon as they implemented the 3-point line and they
Okay.
said that it was going to be 19 feet 9 inches, I was like,
Right.
oh, that's well within my range.
Right.
I was like, I'd ought to average 4 or 5 more points in high school if they had this thing.
Do you remember your first one?
My first 3 was against Texas A&M. Actually, what happened was that was my freshman year, and the day before, Ricky Gray sprained his ankle in practice. So I got the start, and they went zone. They started off the game in the zone, and I hit one.
Okay.
I said, I'm in big time college basketball now.
So when you hit a 3, did you get a yo?
I wasn't a noob then.
You wasn't a noob then.
There was no yos.
Yeah.
So
It's been bastardized now.
Right.
Now. So
hey, well, we're gonna get out of here, but Terrence, hey, please come back and check back in with us as we move down the road in the during the tournament.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thanks for having
For
me.
my great friend and frat brother Michael Roberson, Terrence Mullins, I'm Rick Hampton. Peace, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for all your questions and comments. Appreciate you guys. See you next Sunday. Peace, everybody. And thanks to Rob Green for checking in with us. Good night. Peace.
Good night.